A headline from the front page of the New York Times for every day of January 1933. Nation scientists honor Eyring at 32 for atomic studies. Long-range social plan for nation urged by Hoover Board to stabilize economic system and curb unrest. State needs federal aid for jobless, says Lehman in his inaugural speech. Roosevelt for new nation-states tie. Hoover, back, denounces Democrats for blocking his reorganization plan. Lehman urges beer law relief, labor legislation. Wins Republicans' praise. Coolidge dies suddenly in his Northampton home. The former president, 60, victim of heart attack. Nation is in mourning. Hoover will attend a funeral. Coolidge will be laid to rest today after simple Northampton services. Cabinet joins Hoover for funeral. Coolidge buried with his ancestors on rain-drenched Vermont hillside. Hoover and nation pay last tribute. Princeton to play Harvard in 1934. End football rift. Income tax rise shelved. Democrats now counting on drastic economies. Japan opens G-hole drive, fights Chinese for pass. 3 armies ready to move. 3 Japanese armies advance in G-hole in sub-zero gales. Hoover gave Laval no debt pledge. He insists Congress opposed cuts. French ability to pay was stressed. Wine added to beer bill. Alcohol is cut to 3.05% in redraft for Senate. Japan sees League giving way on issue of free Manchukuo. Filibusters by senators block vital legislation. Party leaders worried. Stimson reasserts Manchuria policy as League moves to take firm stand. Assured Roosevelt won't alter it. Philippines independence plan voted. Senate overriding Hoover veto 66 to 26. Manila hostile forecasts rejection. Roosevelt to meet Hoover tomorrow for survey on the foreign situation. Extra session sure as program fails. Roosevelt and Stimson talk policies on eve of White House conference. Speed on war debts comes to fore. Roosevelt through Hoover invites Britain to talk debts after March 4th. Way paved for other powers in turn. Government operation of Muscle Shoals plant pledged by Roosevelt. Palace of Xerxes and Darius dug up in Persepolis ruins. 23 more indicted in election frauds. Lehman won't act. Stimson acts to avert war at Leticia. Consults Kellogg Pact signatories on Colombia plea. Peru is aggressor. Britain bars trading and debt parlay and note accepting bid by Roosevelt. House leaders move for tariff rises. Roosevelt outlines plan for drastic unifications under 2 new bureaus. Roosevelt sets 3 points in his economy program. Cuts in employees is 1. Ford is considering making car bodies. Roosevelt and Lindsay find a basis for British debt meetings in March, but envoy expects wide differences. Hitler made Chancellor of Germany, but coalition cabinet limits power. Centrists hold balance in Reichstag. A headline for every day of February 1933. Centrist man Hitler make clear his cabinet policy. Hitler wins dissolution of Reichstag, urges nation to end its humiliation at polls March 5th, has 4-year plans. Hitler represses Reds, put curb on socialists, pledges internal peace. Revolt of terror going on in Cuba, fear of riot grows. Thousands forced to leave Leningrad. Nazi troops march with empire flags as violence mounts. Reich gags press, ends Prussian Diet. Roosevelt invites governors March 6th to draft national recovery plans. Smith urges public works dictator. Cold wave strikes after record warmth. Mercury falls from 63 to 27 in 8 hours. Cold grips nation, 65 die. 5-degree low due here, 11 missing in the Sound. Hitler proclaims war on democracy at huge Nazi rally. Japan to proclaim she will not heed actions of League. Dead slaves guard Nubian king in tomb. Hoover would let war debt be used to restore the world to gold basis. British widens scope of debt talks. Japan drafts ultimatum to China to quit Jihol. League Assembly to act. Assassin fires into Roosevelt party at Miami. President-elect uninjured. Mayor Cermak and 4 others wounded. Thankful crowds greet Roosevelt, now speeding north unperturbed. Thought shots were firecrackers. League issues its censure of Japan in 10-hour broadcast to the world. Invites U.S. and Russia to consult. Manchukuo sends ultimatum to China. Warns of imminent attack in Jihol. Song tells troops China will fight. Germany is uneasy about Hindenburg, fears he is weary. House votes dry law repeal 289 to 121. States begin move for ratification. Layman asks quick New York action. Hull and Wooden named for cabinet to seek speed action on world economics. Roosevelt confers with French envoy. Tentative list of Roosevelt cabinet includes Miss Perkins of New York, Ickes, Roper, Dern, and Wallace. 30,000 Japanese attack at Pyongyang as China rejects Tokyo's ultimatum. Panic in Tientsin, League to act today. Japanese leave the League Assembly after unanimous censure by nations. Tokyo's troops sweeping on in Jihol. Pyongyang falls as Japanese advance, 4 armies and air fleet in drive. Washington approves League's action. Ford takes over 2 Detroit banks. Move ends tie-up. Chinese slow up foe in hard battle. Say 5,000 Manchukuo troops bolted. Britain bars export of arms to East. A headline for every day of March 1933. Japanese drive slackens, but 2 armies make gains. All North China is tense. China mainline broken in hard Japanese drive. Shifeng troops desert. Roosevelt in Capitol will confer with Hoover today. Cummings made Attorney General, Rainey Speaker. Roosevelt takes up task as president today. Great crowds in Capitol for inauguration. Extra session will enact a new bank policy. Roosevelt inaugurated, acts to end the national banking crisis quickly. Will ask wartime powers if needed. Roosevelt orders 4-day bank holiday, puts embargo on gold, and calls Congress. Legislature votes layman-wide bank powers, creates a state corporation to issue scrip. Wooden authorizes new checking accounts. Washington leans to emergency currency. Roosevelt studying 8-point bank program. Banks here to furnish cash for vital needs. Roosevelt gets pledge of new currency law today from Congress chiefs, so banks can open tomorrow. Scrip plan abandoned. Hoarded gold is called back. Roosevelt extends the national banking holiday. Congress empowers him to reopen sound institutions. $500 million budget cut next, chiefly Veterans Fund. 123 killed by earthquake in South California cities. 4,150 are reported injured. Earthquake dead in California, 130. Injured, 5,000. Loss over $45 million. Shocks continue in Long Beach area. Many banks in the city and nation reopened today for normal operations, but with hoarding barred. Roosevelt appeals on the radio for full confidence. Roosevelt asks for beer to provide needed revenue. Congress speeds action on this and on economy bill. Deposits exceed the withdrawals in opened banks. House votes 3.2% beer, 316 to 97. Quick passage by Senate forecast. $2 billion relief plan is drafted. Senate passes Economy Bill 62-13, barring all but minor amendments. Stocks soar as trading is resumed. Roosevelt now asks farm relief. Senate votes 3.05% beer and wine. $500 million economy bill is passed. Roosevelt holds Congress for rail power and bank bills. House insists on 3.2% beer. Nazis order Reich to celebrate unity. Mussolini offers a plan to keep European peace by revision of treaties. Reichstag meeting today is prepared to give Hitler full control as dictator. Empire setting is revived in new Reichstag meetings. Hull asks data on raids. President signs bill for legal beer, effective here at 12:01 a.m. April 7th. House approves farm relief 315-98. Hitler cabinet gets power to rule as a dictatorship. Reichstag quits Gendai. Lehman offers beer plan with state control board. Old-time bars forbidden. Germans aroused by attacks abroad deny wide violence. America in longest warm spell since 1776. Temperature line records a 25-year rise. 55,000 here stage protest on Hitler attacks on Jews. Nazis order a new boycott. Hitlerites order boycott against Jews in business, professions, and schools. Lehman stirs legislation and fight for his beer bill. Sees dry repeal in peril. Lehman beer bill changed, then passed by the Senate, is doomed in the Assembly. A headline for every day of April 1933. Nazis cut boycott today with threat of renewal if world does not recant. Nazis hold one-day boycott, little violence in Reich, resumption is unlikely. Lehman appeals to public to free beer of politics. Farron retorts on radio. Dirigible Akron crashes in lightning storm at sea. Only 4 of the 77 men aboard are reported rescued. Airship is believed a total loss, wide search on. 73 lost in Akron crash, 3 survivors here. Ship driven down in storm, cause is unknown. Rescue blimp falls, 2 killed, 5 are saved. Beer is legal at midnight, brewers to ban carnival. State repeal vote May 23rd. Beer flows in 19 states at midnight as city awaits legal brew today. 3.2 era opens here with few revels. Nation has beer shortage. 1 million barrels consumed. Rush brings in big revenue. Roosevelt scraps policy of economic nationalism to assist world parlay. Negro found guilty in Scottsboro case. Jury out 22 hours. Negroes in riotous march on Broadway welcome defender in the Scottsboro case. Schwartz ousted as Reich consul assails Hitler. Roosevelt savings reach $1 billion, $20 million in 1934 outlay. Campaign pledge exceeded. Roosevelt advisors draft plan to mobilize industry. Tariff dictatorship looms. Anti-Jewish drive is staged in Tokyo. Soviet frame-up charge by Britain at Moscow trial. Britain's expulsion after Soviet trial held to be likely. Senate rejects 16-1 silver as a clause in Farm Bill. Inflationists get 33 votes. Roosevelt to halt all gold export. Plans more liberal reserve credit. Industry control being worked out. Gold standard dropped for the present to lift prices and aid our trade position. Plans for controlled inflation drafted. Senate gets bill for controlled inflation, making the president monetary dictator. Stocks and commodities continue to soar. Roosevelt confers with McDonald on economic recovery of world. Republicans attack inflation bill. Roosevelt and McDonald favor world action on money and trade. Bitter inflation fight in Senate. Exchange agreement near, experts tell White House. Aereo arrives for talks. Roosevelt and McDonald in harmony on London economic parlay policies. Aereo starts White House talks. Roosevelt and McDonald report a clearer understanding on debt. Economic parley to open June 12th. Roosevelt seeks debt tariff deals, world money basis, aids disarming, Senate votes free silver proposal. Senate votes 53 to 35 to cut gold content of dollar, Aereo for tariff truce. Senate passes inflation farm bill by 64 to 20. Industry control bill permits price fixing. 3 nations to act to stabilize exchange. Trade deal with Canada looms as result of talks. Davis offers tariff truce. A headline for every day of May 1933. Gandhi plans fast lasting 3 weeks. Hitler will draft youth for labor. 1 million hail him. Nazis seize unions and arrest chiefs. Plan one big body. Inflation bill adopted in the House by 307 to 86. 30 Republicans back it. Roosevelt asks pay rise for workers. Promises to help business end chaos. He sends railroad bill to Congress. Kidnapped girl is found on a boat near her home. Ransom of $80,000 paid. Kidnapper seized, $60,000 recovered. Child aids police. Roosevelt promises a partnership with business and farmers and workers to provide profits and higher wages. President expected to get rights to act on war debts during recess of Congress. Britain agrees to a tariff truce. Roosevelt to ask bargaining power. Davis warns Berlin on arms stand. Nazi book burning fails to stir Berlin. Paris now offers to pay December 15th debt if we agree to holiday during parley. Hitler calls Reichstag on arms issue. France declares opposition to Nazis. 8 nations approve tariff truce. Europe anxiously awaits Hitler arms declaration. Isolation disturbs Reich. Nazi leaders now uneasy over hostility of world. Davis working for accord. Roosevelt to outline foreign policy and statement to the world today. Nazis face united opponents on arms. Roosevelt asks peace through arms cuts in a plea to 54 nations, including Russia. He proposes a new pact of non-aggression. Hitler says Reich will forego arms but will no longer remain inferior. Roosevelt plans other peace steps. Hugh S. Johnson chosen dictator of industry. 4 tax plans offered. Harriman vanishes. Police speed hunt to avert suicide. Harriman stabs himself as he is found in Roslyn. His wounds not serious. 4 powers agree at Rome to keep peace 10 years. France shifts arms policy. Davis pledges U.S. to consult on war and not block action on aggressor. London now sees success of parleys. Morgan paid no income tax for the years 1931 and 1932. Neither did his partners. Morgan stock favor list revealed. Wooden, Adams, McAdoo, Young on it. Move is started to change tax laws. Morgan foreign financing detailed. Fees disclosed. Coolidge on one stock list. Gold clause repealed asked by Roosevelt to permit payments and legal tender. General Fang rebels to fight Japanese and depose Chiang. Austria to fight Nazis to a finish, Dollfuss asserts. Roosevelt to act on debts. May waive June interest. House votes gold repeal. Germany rejects report to League that her laws violate Silesian Treaty. A headline for every day of June 1933. Morgan favor recipients held to share stock risk. Senator Keene on new list. Hitler to expand credit in his recovery program. Subsidies for marriages. City agrees on new taxes on bridges and taxicabs. Real estate fees raised. Roosevelt urged to veto Senate veteran increases to save economy program. Roosevelt warns House leaders they must levy $170,675,067 taxes if they restore veteran pensions. Mattern flies for Omsk, beats record to Moscow after landing near Oslo. Aldermen vote auto tax as citywide fight begins. Legality is challenged. Roosevelt trims program to hasten end of session. Sees his policies menaced. Bank renews city loans to December 11th at rate of 5.75% on $30 million tax pledge. Morgan defends his taxes and stock lists and businesses. Senators hear partners. Senators plan to adjourn by filibuster on reorganization. House completes action on bills. Trade parley opens today and move to speed recovery. Monetary truce is sought. Roosevelt threatens veto an appeal to the nation if Senate voids economies. Senate fight on veterans again halts adjournment. Industrial bill is passed. Britain pays U.S. $10 million in silver, asks revision. Roosevelt bars debt action at economic conference. Senate passes veteran amendment, courting veto. London parley draws plan for stabilized currencies. Wooden denies agreement. President starts recovery program, signs bank, rail, and industry bills. Wheat growers will get $150 million. 5 slain in battle by gang to free Oklahoma bandit. Parley and dilemma as Americans fail to clarify policies. Our domestic recovery put first by Washington. London turning to prices. 10 nations outline price problems. First parley test coming on wheat. Mole flies to consult Roosevelt. 1,629,000 new jobs created in nation in past 2 months. Hitler ousts socialists from Reichstag and Dietz, suppresses their party. Conference is handicapped by indecision over policies, but McDonald is hopeful. Hull pushes plans to raise prices. First accord likely on wheat cuts. Fight on labor and industry seen here. Life is merely dreamed, new nerve theory holds. Freer use of silver money gaining support in London. Cousins urges price rises. 25% gold reserve enough, parley experts decide. Britain won't peg pound. French seek aid for franc to avert devalorization. Mole sees recovery here. Europe asks Roosevelt aid to end dollar speculation, called menace to parley. A headline for every day of July 1933. Federal Reserves to steady dollar, easing fluctuations during parley. Roosevelt permits actions by banks. Roosevelt bars gold pact and form proposed by Block. Meets cabinet tomorrow. $4 million lent to Soviet by RFC to buy cotton. Other loans are expected. Roosevelt rebuke stuns gold block, but conference is likely to go on. President turns to domestic drive. Roosevelt sends message instructing our delegates to keep conference going. London conference ready to recess today, probably to October, on gold block's demand. Roosevelt to base dollar on 1924 to 25 prices. Hull plea saves London conference. All factions work on new agenda. Roosevelt pressing home recovery. Roosevelt drafts message detailing plan for parley to increase world prices. Roosevelt asks Alabama to vote dry law repeal as a Democratic pledge. Hitler seeks jobs for all Germans. J.J. O'Connell Jr. seized by kidnappers in Albany. $250,000 ransom sought. O'Connell's named new negotiators in ransom demand. Roosevelt orders Farley to place all postmasters under the civil service. Rush on industry codes swamps recovery board. Coal and oil leaders act. President considers order fixing wages and hours pending code agreements. Steel Code grants pay rise of 15% to skilled workers. 40-hour week is proposed. Post in Berlin in 25 3/4 hours, delayed in East Prussia by storms, then flies on. 1 million begin short week or receive higher wages as New Deal functions. Repeal wins in Alabama and Arkansas by 3-2. Large wet vote in cities. Great Italian air armada is acclaimed by millions as it wings over the city. Post, lost, lands in Alaska Village. Plane is damaged. Peak calls Parlay Monday to curb grain speculation. President watches stocks. Post arrives safely in New York, circling world in 7 days, 19 hours. Mollisons are flying the Atlantic. Mollisons crash at Bridgeport. Both are injured, planes wrecked. Had flown from Wales in 39 hours. Roosevelt appeals to the nation for unified action to spur recovery. Peak demands grain trading reform. Nation pledges support to the President's Code in a flood of messages. President starts mobilizing nation for 6 million jobs. Layman acts to put state behind the recovery drive. Rush of employers to sign. NRA to leave pay in higher scales to the employer. 11 New York banks pledge to help to NRA by financing the production of goods. Kidnappers free O'Connell after payment of $40,000. Thinks he was held here. A headline for every day of August 1933. Death for kidnappers with ransoming a felony is demanded by layman. Mob stops train seeking 3 lawyers. 14,000 banks adopt code covering hours and pay. NRA acts in coal strike. NRA makes new move to settle coal strike. Roosevelt in touch. Gas bombs shut stock exchange. 4 suspects held. Roosevelt appoints board of 7 to decide all disputes over industrial problems. Government will adjust its contracts under NRA to meet cost increases. Havana police kill score in crowd outside Capitol. Machado expected to quit. Gunmen try to kill politician in home. Government calls on Cuba to drop political strife. Island under martial law. Machado drafts a formula countering Welles's plan. Strikers refuse to return. Cuban army rises against Machado, demands he resign by noon today. Roosevelt studies reconstruction. Machado flies to a secret refuge. De Cespedes makes president of Cuba. 18 killed as mobs avenge murders. Roosevelt sends warships to Cuba to guard Americans, not intervene. De Cespedes sworn in, riots subside. China flood covers 10,000 square miles. Rackets linked to politics by Medali and Kernochin. Gang escapes police trap. Roosevelt ready to act in steel and coal tangle by drafting their codes. Johnson drafts oil code, demands action on coal, seeks new chiefs for NRA. Steel agreement reached, wins president's approval. Average 40-hour week set. Roosevelt approves codes for steel, oil, and lumber. Coal groups still debate. Reich fails to gain under Nazis' rule. Foes are helpless. NRA drafting coal code, compact on autos near. Retail hearing on today. Johnson seeks federal aid to finance NRA industries, says banks lag in credits. Johnson will not permit use of term open shop in code of any industry. Roosevelt gets coalmen and union heads to confer price fixing and retail code. 21 nations in wheat pact curb output and exports. Inflation issue is shelved. Roosevelt sees the nation started on upward surge, calls policy permanent. Mole resigns from Post to edit a new magazine backed by Vincent Astor. RFC told by President to seek credits for NRA. Cool agreement reached. Exportation of mine gold permitted by Roosevelt. Time limit for hoarders. $37,500,000 loan to city for 38th Street Tunnel. 4-year job for 8,000 men. A headline for every day of September 1933. Johnson aide resigns in clash on NRA policy. Labor issue still active. Nazis pledge jobs. Hitler places art on a Nordic basis. Hitler sees Reich Nazi for all time. Aides assail Jews. Hitler disclaims desire for a war. 150,000 in review. Cuban troops rise against officers. Rules by committee. Radical junta rules Cuba as army oust Cespedes. We rush 4 warships there. We consult Latin America as Swanson goes to Cuba. Wells reports disquiet. 29 U.S. ships on Cuban duty. Factions there adopt plan for nation to save itself. Cuban seeks a coalition as army crisis continues. Mexico pleads for order. Cuba's rebel junta yields to demand for president. Plans to hold elections. Grau San Martin sworn in as Cuba's new president. Army officers are defiant. O'Brien to push tax plan despite stormy protest. Rejects savings bank aid. Johnson tells NRA rally depression is 25% lifted by Roosevelt's program. 1.5 million cheer vast NRA parade. March of 250,000 city's greatest. Demonstration lasts till midnight. Coalmen tell Roosevelt code will be signed today. 16 shot in riots at mines. Soft coal code approved by operators and miners. Wage agreements near. Operators accept code for soft coal industry, union to be recognized. Layman ready to step in as banks ask he be called to help solve city crisis. President refuses to resign in Cuba. Dictatorship seen. Priauld defeats Tammany by 70,000. O'Brien and rest of Slate victors. Koenig defeat by Mellon indicated. 7 gangsters seized here in O'Connell kidnapping, linked to 5 murders. President orders outlay of $75 million to clothe and feed the unemployed. Roosevelt offers to lend 10 cents a pound on cotton to farmers reducing crops. Austria to set up Nazi prison camps. McKee to run, Farley says. Aides pick running mate. Untermeyer hits pay cut. Tampico in ruins. Hundreds killed in a 150-mile gale. O'Brien vetoes stock tax. Exchange decides to stay. New payroll crisis near. Banks agree to city finance plan. Layman breaks deadlock in crisis. McKee to make statement today. City accepts 4-year credit plan, vote 10% tax penalty. Loans at 4%. McKee now is expected not to run. McKee and Race denounces corrupt, stupid Tammany. Curry and Fusion worried. A headline for every day of October 1933. Roosevelt decides to buy coal, food, and clothing for the needy this winter. Buy Now campaign without ballyhoo begins next week. Heavy fighting in Havana, 119 dead, 1 an American. Officers surrender hotel. Dollfuss is shot by Austrian Nazi. Britain denounces Nazi racial views at Geneva session. Pecora on McKee's ticket. Bronx breaks with Curry. Leaders face loss of jobs. McKee refuses McNabeau aid. Fertig quits Curry ticket. Goldman ousted. 200 to go. President orders accord at once on captive mines, or he will act himself. Hillquit, leader of socialists, dies. Democrats bolt to McKee in Brooklyn and Queens. A job rush, Seabury says. McCooey rules collapsing as leaders go to McKee. O'Brien opens his campaign. McKee opens his campaign, denies control by boss. Would end needless jobs. Lone Island picked to imprison worst of our criminals. AFFL votes a boycott on all German products until persecution ceases. Germany quits League and arms parley. Hitler scores treaty, demands equality. Call election November 12th to obtain approval. Brief arms parley, recess sought and moved to save it. Note to be sent to Reich. McKee denounces race bias charge, cites his record. Bosses denounced by Priol at rally in Tammany Hall. O'Brien gets an ovation. Hitler rejects parleys till equality is granted. Acts to win foes at home. McKee charges Tammany with relief fund graft. Mills speaks for fusion. Roosevelt acts to recognize Russia with invitation to conference here. Litvinov coming to discuss issues. O'Brien prohibits celebration here of German society. Roosevelt announces new policy to value dollar, to fix price of gold after putting up commodities, answers critics of the NRA in radio talk to Nation. Roosevelt will buy gold at once above world price. Stocks rise, code for retail stores is signed. Gold buying starts today. Price will be fixed daily. NRA import curb studied. Gold buying opens at $31.36, only 27 cents over world price. McKee outlines program listing 21 major planks. Seabury attack record. President declares Ford ineligible for contracts under provisions of NRA. Arabs riot again. Palestine unrest spreading outside. Roosevelt decides to buy gold in world's markets. RFC will make purchases. 2,500 and mob raid Detroit dye plants. A headline for every day of November 1933. LaGuardia and McKee agree economy can slash budget. 4-year bank plan is signed. Nazis swallow up Ulstein Press, largest in Reich. Fusion candidates cheered at great rally in Garden. Farley to vote for McKee. Governors draft a plan for drastic price fixing. President may modify it. Rival parties stage big rallies as city campaign nears its close. All leaders speak in final drive. 3 parties see victory in tomorrow's election. Managers make forecasts. Huge city vote is expected today. All candidates fight to very end. McKee sees election fraud plot. LaGuardia elected mayor of New York. Fusion controls board of estimate. Repeal of 18th Amendment is assured. Capacity liquor output permitted by Roosevelt. Repeal effective December 5th. State liquor rules issued. Old-time saloon banned. Rigid curbs on retail sale. Hitler stops all industry an hour for final plea for unanimous vote. Hindenburg urges 100% Hitler vote. 40,618,147 for Hitler in record German poll. 2,055,363 noes counted. Nazis look abroad for the first next step. Hitler hides plans. Mr. X at hearing details Nazi plot. W.K. Vanderbilt Jr. is killed in South. His car hits truck. Nazi church laws to be revoked. Non-Aryans now acceptable. United States recognizes Soviet exacting pledge on propaganda. Bullitt named first ambassador. Roosevelt scores Tories and doubting Thomases. Sees peace in Soviet pact. Protestants balk at curbs by Nazis. Condemns pagans. AAU boycotts 1936 Olympics because of the Nazi ban on Jews. Sprague quits Treasury to attack gold policy, Roosevelt going ahead. Reserves advisors urge we return to gold basis. President hits at foes. End of dollar uncertainty expected soon in capital. RFC gold price unchanged. Roosevelt won't change government's gold policy, ignoring attack by Smith. Hitler asks new accord ending Versailles Pact, consults French envoy. 6,000 watch a mob hang slayers of Brooke Hart as body is found in Bay. President brings movies and liquor under NRA control. Missouri Negro 19 lynched despite soldiers and tanks. Troops win Maryland fight. 4 in Maryland held as lynchers, freed by court. A headline for every day from December 1933. Royal Bones convict Richard III of murders in the Tower in 1483. Waxy Gordon guilty gets 10 years, is fined $80,000 for tax evasion. Swanson warns of impaired navy as inviting war. Spain moves to crush disorders as right parties gain in election. Legal liquor due tonight, city ready to celebrate, stores to open tomorrow. Prohibition repeal is ratified at 5:32 p.m. Roosevelt asked nation to bar the saloon. New York celebrates with quiet restraint. Liquor for homes scarce, speakeasy raids go on. Inquiry on prices likely. Britain is unmoved by Mussolini plan to reform League. Roosevelt calls on Peake to head bureau to seek liquor import treaties. Spain crushes anarchist rebels, 42 killed, hundreds wounded. Anarchists renew uprising in Spain, Madrid is bombed. High liquor tax barred by Roosevelt in order to destroy bootlegger. 3 stowaways found on bird ship add to problem of overcrowding. Burl, Moses, Blanchard in LaGuardia cabinet. 3 other liberals chosen. NRA warns Weir not to break law. Steelman defiant. Morgenthau asks revision to close income tax gaps for low rate under $25,000. Dr. Einstein doubts light speed varies. U.S. moves to block a feminism treaty laid to strife here. RFC seeks $1 billion more to lend to closed banks. Once added year of life. City orders a new label on all whiskey by January 5th, showing the ingredients. 400,000 Germans to be sterilized. President orders purchase of 24,421,410 silver ounces yearly, half to be coined. Vanderloob gets sentence of death, 4 others freed. Sterilization condemned by Pope, Nazis' plan is held unchristian. Archbishop assassinated in procession to altar, laid to old world feud. City Yuletide gay, all the needy fed, less intoxication. Roosevelt busy drafting plans for new Congress, he consults many aides. Stalin says Japan is grave danger, hopes for peace. New cooperation policy for Western Hemisphere outlined by Roosevelt. Mercury 3 below zero, coldest day in 14 years, relief here due today. Cold wave ends in city after dip to 6 below zero.